though I have lost most interest in the baseball playoffs and now the state of the World Series, I did watch part of last night's pounding of the Cardinals by the Texas Rangers, and I took some solace in the fact that the Orioles weren't the only team to get completely shellacked, as I turned it off after 3 innings when it was already 10-0. So I think the Orioles could find some sympathy in the Diamondbacks last night. Did I say the Cardinals before? I mean, that's football, sorry. I did notice one thing. Whenever Arizona was pitching, there were some people in the low box seats right behind home plate. And there was a guy, there was one guy who was kind of like making his own umpire calls. And there was another guy dressed as Waldo from Where's Waldo with the big red and white striped sweater and the big glasses and a hat. Whenever Arizona was pitching, the guy dressed as Waldo was either hidden behind somebody else or he actually had another shirt that he put on top to give the pitcher a more distraction-free look at home plate. But whenever with Texas was pitching, he was in his full Where's Waldo outfit, clearly trying to be a distraction to the pitcher. And I found that rather disturbing in one sense, though we all do it when we're fans and we either shout loudly when things are going on or give quiet respect to those who need the intensity when it's our side. But I also took some solace in knowing that we are often distracted and prevented from seeing what we need to see. And today we get an opportunity to focus more clearly on this promise of heaven as we celebrate the saints. Because we need to have that clear vision of heaven, to see that promise of Jesus that your reward will be great in heaven. Too often, we're either prevented from seeing it or we look elsewhere. We fail to look that far ahead. We only look to today or tomorrow and don't think about what really matters. The saints, though, in all their splendid diversity, coming from every time and place and walk of life, showing us a variety of paths of holiness, they all teach us, they encourage us, and as we look to the saints, we can also look through them to heaven, because we strive to see what they saw. In short, they teach us that heaven is worth sacrificing for. And through a variety of paths of holiness, they teach us about heaven being worth it, Jesus being worth it. And to the extent that we can keep that focus, keep that passion, and that sense in our hearts that Jesus is worth sacrificing for, then we are also set with firm resolve, solid intention to do what the Lord asks. And I mentioned that the saints teach us a variety of paths to heaven, because it's not only that we honor the martyrs, those who laid down their lives for the Lord, who clearly teach us that heaven is worth dying for, heaven is worth suffering for. And we have plenty of examples of those who suffered for the sake of the name of Jesus. We see even now people suffering for the sake of his name, persecuted for the sake of righteousness. We look to the tragedies of the war in the Middle East and the Holy Land, and we see those who are marginalized because of their faith. In the midst of this, I don't want to get all political, but in the midst of this great war that's raging there, where we see terrorist activity from one side, Israel defending its place, who's caught in the middle of all of that? The Christian community. And even though nationally so many would say that we stand with Israel and they deserve to fight for their place in the world, we also have to stand with those who suffer for the sake of the name of Jesus, who are preserving the place of Christians in the Holy Land, who are suffering, who are many of whom are living as refugees because their homes have been destroyed. The heart of the Christian community today in the Palestinian territories, and especially in Gaza. We keep them in our prayers as those who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness. But the saints also teach us not just that Jesus is worth suffering for and worth dying for. He's worth raising your voice for, to speak, to teach, to share your faith. Jesus is worth sacrificing for through lives of charity and service, in so many examples of saints who cared for those in need, who sacrificed their own comforts for the sake of others. Jesus is worth leaving your nets behind to follow, as the apostles teach us, to follow a path of fidelity and service. Jesus is worth devotion for, as we look to those saints who drew others into communities of prayer, of devotion, in monastic life. We look to all those who founded communities to teach, to care for the sick, to serve in hospitals, and every walk of life where there is discipleship. The saints teach us that Jesus is worth doing all of these things for. On All Saints' Day, I always find it a day to look for some patron, to look for someone to be an example. And there are thousands. There are more than 4,000 saints in our Roman martyrology, our official roll of saints. In short, there is someone for everyone to see as an example and an encouragement. Next week, a number of our parishioners will be headed off on pilgrimage with Dr. Trapp and I, with the American Pilgrimage Choir. And we're traveling to Italy, and the spirit of our pilgrimage is visiting the tombs of saints, a variety of saints, where we can offer devotion, fix our gaze on them so that through them we can see Christ more clearly, and be encouraged to keep fixed on heaven, that Jesus and that heaven are worth serving and worth believing.